All the way back in the first lecture of the entire semester, I mentioned that there's this concept called weight, which is also called influence, and that I'm going to be using those terms in many ways interchangeably, which I'm sure has caused you many problems throughout the semester. I apologize for that. Now, for the most part, when we've talked about this, we've really talked about weight painting, and we haven't mentioned influence that much, except to say that they're kind of, in many ways, the same thing. Today that's going to come up because the trick that we're going to use is in the skin menu. In the skin menu, there's a little tiny submenu that you may not even have noticed called Edit Influence. And Edit Influence is separate from Paint Skin Weights. Paint Skin Weights allows you to control existing weights, whereas Edit Influence will allow you to add and remove joints from influencing your model. So very similar, that's a very nuanced discussion of terms. I'm just going to rip this menu off for a second so that we can take a look at it. But essentially, as you know, this whole area up here, if I look at any of these vertices in my component editor, I'll see that this has been painted with a weight of 1 to the freeze joint. So I am going to go back to object mode, and I'm going to select all of these upper brow joints. Every single one of them. And then I'm going to click this Add Influence button. That's it, that's all I had to do. And now if I take this joint, you'll see that it starts moving the skin around. And if I look at this vertex, well, this one, because this is one I had selected before, sometimes you have to close the component editor and come back in, but now it will tell you that this vertex is being influenced by all of these influence objects, and it's actually overwritten its connection to the freeze joint, which is really exciting. So adding influence is just like adding joints to your rig, and that's the concept that we're going to be working with here. The other thing you should be aware of is that if I click onto the model, I can see that the model has two inputs coming in. One of them is its layer information, which lets me do this, turn it on and off. The other one is Skin Cluster 3. Skin Cluster 3 is the node that connects this model to the joints. We are just adding information to this node. We're not doing anything more complicated than that. And because of that, we have the ability to do this in little stages. So I just influenced that vertex with all of these brow joints. And you could see that when I move the brow joint, it moves all the way down through the eye socket. And I'm sure you're thinking this is going to be a metric ton of weight painting. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to try to do this in the most practical way possible. So I'm going to take all of these upper facial features and add them all at the same time, and hopefully that'll cause the weights to even out and will preserve the shape of my eye sockets. And then we'll do the lips, because the lips are definitely going to require some weight painting. But if we start up here and protect all of this information, hopefully it won't be that bad. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to Control Z back to before I added that influence. That should be before I added the influence. We'll just check it out. Yep, we're back on the freeze joint. So I'm going to pause this video here and leave you sitting there thinking about the idea of adding influence. Again, we're in the skin menu, and this is the Edit Influence section. I've pulled it out with this little line so that I can get to all of these options real quick. The tool we're going to be using the most is Add Influence, so just keep that in the back of your head. And if you want to pull out the little bar, you can too. In the next video, I'm going to start doing the actual adding of the influences. So come and join me for that.